And I came here in 1986 to run it for myself, and I signed the papers, and I was owner of the Red Barn Incorporated. People come in here for the experience, more so than I think anything else. And they love the fact that somebody's actually taking the time to listen. Maybe you learn in proportion to how much you listen and care. If you can find that balance between doing what you love that isn't really work, that might pay the bills, and can resonate with people, and actually to some extent help people. Without my customers, I would be doing what I don't love, guaranteed.
Good morning. Welcome to probably our last broadcast of the year, since the session is over and done with. We do have to go back one more day, but
Yeah, veto day.
veto day. So I'm Representative John Picciotti.
And I'm Senator Scott Searway, and I represent Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Benton, Albion, Clinton, and Unity Township, and you represent?
Fairfield, Smithfield, and Mercer.
And we just wanted to update you on how the closure of the session went. I think that, because we always have our days that things look one way and it can turn around and be the next, in the political world, you never know how it's gonna turn out. So it was kind of a long week.
It was, and I'm going to say the new biennial budget does contain numerous conservative victories, as the elimination of the 3% surtax.
That was a victory for both sides, really.
Yeah, well, also, but we also eliminated the proposed lodging tax increase.
Yeah.
And we did enact significant education reforms that will drive more money directly to the main classrooms, and that's the important part. I think that we Republicans in the legislature did move the ball down the field as a team, negotiating and fending off for tax and spending increases. And with the help of the governor, we put the ball in the end zone.
That's
actually.
right.
So
Yeah.
Thanks to the professionalism and strength of our two leaders, both Senator Thibodeau and Ken Fredette, we delivered a budget that the governor could finally sign in good faith. As Republican legislatures, we, stood strong together in our respective chambers, I think, to create an environment where our strength and resolve one debate for Maine taxpayers and Maine students. While it isn't an easy journey to get to that point, we couldn't be more proud of the hard work of both the Senate and the House put in while representing the Maine people. So.
Well, we were able to keep from having tax increases, and I think that's the basic thing that we didn't want to do, is increase taxes on the people of the state of Maine.
I mean, we're getting a lot of, I've gotten, you support the people of Maine. Well, I support the people of our district. And when you look at that 3% surtax, 55% of the people in our district voted against that, not for it. And those people come first. I've got some impact on that 3% and wrote it out that I don't think a lot of people realize.
Yeah.
According to the Department of Professional and Financial Regulation, 11,000 of the 16,000 filers with incomes above 200,000 are small businesses. And they are taxed more than corporations in Maine.
Yep.
According to a 2017 report from the Maine Office of Policy and Management results, modeling software indicated a few potential economic impacts from that 3% surtax. Private sector employers will negatively be impacted, which means we would lose between 2,400 and 4,300 jobs. Retail disposable incomes would never negatively be impacted by 400 to 600 million. Maine's population would negatively be impacted by 800 to 1,400 people. And the gross GDP would be negatively impacted by 40 to 160 million dollars.
Right.
So, it's targeting the Maine high earners is risky because we have a small and mobile population there. We rank 40th in the nation on households that earn 200,000 or more at 3%.
And like I said, I think both parties won on that by getting rid of it. You know, certainly at the beginning, I'm sure the Democratic Party was all for it because they could get a lot of money for education and whatever else it would have been spent for because it was way over what was needed.
Yeah.
But I think that it was a win for both parties because for one reason, it will keep the population here. We would have lost a lot of people out of this state because we would have been the highest tax state in the nation.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a bad thing to label any state and then expect people to come here. It wouldn't have happened. And then we would have lost not only people, but kids that go to schools, and we just would not
Yeah.
have been able to fund what we've got going.
Well-
And so this is a win for everybody, and I think that's why it got, you know, a lot of Democrats went on board to get rid of the
Yeah.
3% as well.
One of the things that is laid low that's not really talked about in the press is the top eight paying occupations in Maine are medical.
Yeah,
Obstetricians, gynecologists, surgeons, dentists, etc. You know, Maine ranks 15th in net movement of high-income people, meaning they come and go from our state at a high rate.
yeah,
And that could have been really dangerous.
devastating,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
And
you
then
know,
we had ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
That was you know, a tough one, but there again, it was unconstitutional by 7 judges from Supreme Court.
Yep.
The Attorney General said that it was unconstitutional, and she's a strong Democrat. In fact, she's going to even run for governor. There's several people that spoke against it. One was Senator Bill Diamond, who
Right.
is a strong Democrat, that he was Secretary of State, and he dealt with the ballots and whatever. And he said it would have been a nightmare. It would have cost the state tremendous amount of money, and these towns and cities were not designed to be able to handle all
yeah,
that.
I believe it was an extra $1.5 million per election is what it
At
would have
least,
cost.
yeah. So he said he strongly was against it. And so, you know, when you have people like that, there's no way it's gonna pass. I
Yeah.
mean, to be, and we were kind of lied to. I think the people were lied to, because they
Right.
said it was constitutional when it went up for election. So when people went to go and vote for this, they thought that this was constitutional, thought it was a great idea, but it really wasn't. It's
Well-
no more than a trifecta at a horse race.
Right.
It
but
really
again-
isn't.
But again, people in our district,
Yeah.
actually, the higher percentage voted
They
against it.
voted against it. And like I said, you know, when you're talking about like the way it goes, if you think back, just any of you in TV land here, if you think back, how many would have actually voted for a second or a third place person on the presidential race? You probably would not have, because there was none of them that you really liked, and you picked just one that you could possibly tolerate, and that was it. And so this would not work. This type system would not work.
Right.
So it's one person, one vote, and that's the way it should be. And it's on plurality, and that's the Constitution. It says plurality of the election, and so that's the way it is.
So, and we get to go back on the 20th of July and hash over a few of the governor's vetoes and,
Yep.
and other bills that are sitting out there. Hopefully, I definitely would like to see, and I know the Senate passed it, the House did not pass it, is the, excuse my saying, but it's the female genital mutilation bill that makes it a crime to take a young lady and sew them up
It's,
so they're gentle.
they can't urinate, they can't.
Right, it
You
just
know, they
blows my
can't have
mind,
their-
but why that bill was defeated in the House. I get the aspect of, oh, we have to educate the people first. Well, guess what? They know exactly what they're doing, they've been doing it for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And it's something that needs to be stopped
It's
in this country.
inhumane, it's
Exactly.
inhumane. And also that, you know, we do have an educational piece for the monies that's there.
That's in there.
It's for federal
into the bill
monies
anyway,
already
yes.
there, for education, so this was kind of like a double effort, to spend more money on education, which wasn't needed. And so here we are, we're trying to take care of the people and trying to, in my professions, I've always, as a law enforcement officer, it was serve and protect. And I consider this serving and protecting these young ladies. And, I mean, we're talking 10 years old,
Yep.
11 years old. These
It's
girls
so
do not
sad.
have choices. And they just, this is their belief of a way to keep them having relationships with men as they grow up in their teenage years and 20s. And it's very painful. Some of them feel like they're having babies every time they have their menstrual period. So very, very serious. It was heart-wrenching when I listened to this in a public hearing.
Yep.
When they brought a young girl with them, and told the story. And then they're kind of like, you can put yourself in a domestic situation where you hear about, you know, the guy beating on his wife, and then he brings her flowers and says, "Forgive me," or "I didn't mean it," and then they go back with them. And this is the mentality of this type's religion and beliefs that they have, and they feel that this is part of that, and that they can do it, and not feel like they have done any harm. But these girls, some of them even get infections, and it's very unsanitary and cruel. There's no anesthesia, nothing. They
Right,
just
it's just,
grab
you know,
them and put them on a table.
do
you
it,
know?
that's it.
It's
And
really
that's,
serious.
you know, and the Senate did pass that bill nicely.
Yeah,
However, in the House,
I know.
again, it was on the Democratic side because they have the majority, and I hate to use
yeah.
political stuff in here, but they voted, the Democrats voted to kill the bill, the same way that they voted to, right now, on sex trafficking for young ladies under 18 years old. The penalty is 10 years. We put a bill in to raise it to 25 years. Again, the Senate passed it handily.
Yeah,
Came over to the House, it was killed in the House.
I know, it really, you know, I spoke on the floor about this bill, and I feel strongly that it really needs to pass to protect these young girls.
Yep. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
The other thing we've got coming up, of course, next, on the 20th, will be, the governor just vetoed the solar bill that had passed. And I just want to say that I don't have a problem with the solar industry, I really don't. But unfortunately, the facts do not support the current subsidized solar industry, and the ratepayers are forced to pay for it. You know, for one, a 26-year supply of unsubsidized LEDs to replace 4 100-watt incandescent light bulbs cost $50 and will produce 20% more energy savings than a 30% federally subsidized solar panel which would cost $660. I also find that when it comes to the CO2, Maine is an oil state. All right, no other state in the union uses more oil per capita than Maine. However, Maine's carbon footprint from the electric generation is only 9%. Maine has the 4th cleanest electricity generation in the country. Using a heavily subsidized solar to displace the 4th cleanest electricity in our country is not a good investment for our ratepayers, I'm sorry. On average, a typical $1,000 solar panel will generate 300 kilowatts per hour, or per year, which is equivalent to 7 gallons of oil. It would take about $35,000 worth of solar panels to equal 1 tank of oil. Another point is that for every $1 million that Maine spends on heat pumps, it would take $8 million worth of solar panels to save the same amount of CO2. I cannot vote for a bill that will have people paying 8 to 13 times more for their energy. I'm sorry. I'm not against solar industry as long as they do their business as everyone else does their business and not supported by subsidies paid for by the ratepayers. Higher electric bills for Maine people is not the way to build an industry.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, whatever, CMP, I've talked to the head guy, one of the top guys at CMP, and he's kind of a lobbyist there, and he says CMP is not going to lose money. So whatever solar people, want a discount or whatever from CMP, that goes on to the ratepayer, because they're not gonna lose money.
Right.
They said they get their check, they get what they get.
Yep.
And then whatever happens here goes to the other. And so I don't wanna see that happen. I think if you choose to have solar, so be it. Enjoy, try to get what you can out of it.
Right.
But it should not be taken away from the ratepayer.
Yeah,
This is-
especially,
I mean,
especially in our state with the
Yeah.
older, with
Yeah.
the biggest,
Right.
older
Oldest
population.
population in the country. And also, what I had very big concerns about solar, these solar fields and farms, it should go directly to Maine if they put it here, not to other states.
Right.
I had one company come up to me and said, well, we're gonna put one on the Bell Squeeze Road in Clinton, 100-acre solar
Right.
field
Right, I know.
for solar farm, right near not far from where the tower is.
Yep,
there.
yep.
And then I said, okay, so how's Clinton going to benefit from this? Oh, they're gonna get revenue from it, tax revenue.
Tax revenue.
I said, oh, really? So what happens is the valuation of that property, we'll say they put a $5 million project there. $5 million goes towards the top of the valuation of this town of Clinton. And then the federal money goes down for getting tax money from them.
Yep, they get a 30% rebate.
Because that valuation. So they lose and becomes a wash. They get no tax benefit. And so that's number one. Number two, I said, where's the power going? It's going to Connecticut. And I said, so Connecticut's buying up our land in Maine, putting up a farm solar of 100 acres. So we're basically losing that 100 acres, and it's going to Connecticut, and we're getting no tax benefit from it. So Connecticut's buying up our land basically and using it as a little Connecticut piece. So,
Well, I'm curious about the one, you can see it on the interstate, the big one that they're putting in over Colby property.
Yeah.
Two things. Number one, Waterville does get zero tax out of that
Yeah.
because that's not taxable
non-profit.
profit. They're gonna get a 30% kickback from that. And again, the production on it. The other thing that people don't realize is that those solar panels eventually are going to get destroyed by a big hailstorm. I mean, it could be various different things. And I guess it's quite expensive to discard them. It's, again, you've got quite a situation there. I mean, if somebody's 25 years old, building a brand-new house, married, got a good job, I might consider solar. You put solar in, put the proper batteries within your house so that that property is actually, you get your electricity, you're not buying it off the grid or selling it back, you're using that electricity to just do your house.
Yep.
I have no problem with that.
No, and some people can afford it.
Right, and if you're 25 years old and you're gonna live to be 80.
Yep.
I mean, you got 60 years or so to get the payback and make the money back, so, you know.
Yeah, like I'm with you, I'm all for solar. I just think that it should not be put on to other people.
Yep, the tax things.
Right.
So anyway, then we'll have a couple of more things coming up next week.
Yes, I'm trying to get the assault on police officers bill, LD
Again, that's
990.
another one, yeah.
Yeah, we have a whole list of appropriations bills. All
Yes.
this list
Sitting on
is
your folks'
sitting on their
trailer.
desk. And, you know, so we get this list, but we've not been able to touch it. So appropriations has to go line by line and decide if they can release those. And if they have any big budget items at all, they'll probably be either carried over or they may be dead.
Right, well, actually, if
So-
they're sitting on the appropriations table and afterwards, they just die anyway.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, and there's a lot of good bills in there too. There are
Right.
some good bills in there. One of the things that is coming up though that I wasn't paying that much attention to, but they did pass through and it did go through, was the use of a handheld electronic device as your cell phone. As of the 23rd, that is going to become an illegal situation, so you're not gonna be able to drive down the road.
Did he
talking on
veto
your
it?
cell-
No, he didn't?
No.
Okay, I saw
So
it
you're not
was
gonna
gonna
be able to
come.
drive down the road talking on your cell phone. You're gonna have to either use earplugs, your
Bluetooth,
earphones, or
or-
Bluetooth.
Or maybe your watch phone.
Yeah. But I mean, we still have the distracted driving, but,
Yeah.
you know, because I've had some people ask me, well, what about the electronic cigarettes and the vapes and stuff like that? I don't believe that that falls into that
Only if
category.
it becomes a distraction.
Right.
Those vapes will fog up your house, your
Yeah.
room, and you can't, your car, and you can't see out. I
Can't
guess
see
that could be a
anything, yeah.
distraction.
GPS would be another thing. I mean, if you're sitting there punching stuff up as you're
Yeah.
driving down the road, that could be
Yeah.
a problem too. But just so people are aware, I think it takes effect on the 23rd, from what I've heard, is that you're not gonna be able to use your cell phone while
Yeah.
driving.
They have it in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
It
a lot of
seems to
states
work
have,
okay,
a lot of states
yeah.
have that hands-free
Yeah.
type of situation.
Yeah, also there's, like I said, that assault on a police officer, just lately, last week, we had another police officer was shot.
Yeah.
And targeted. And so this new law that, Senator Paul Davis and I sponsored, and I don't know if I got you to sponsor it or not.
I think I
It's
signed on to
LD
it.
990, and that one is if it's selecting an officer or targeting them, they will be held accountable and get a higher class crime for assault.
Yeah. No, I think it's it's very important. I mean, we're lucky in Maine where it doesn't happen a lot, but that can change overnight too.
Yeah, well, it happens. I mean,
But
I
and it
was,
does happen.
as a law enforcement officer, I can remember a pickup truck blocking me in, and I had 25 guys surround my cruiser saying, come on out.
Wow.
So it does happen. Firsthand experience.
Yeah, that
So,
doesn't sound
no,
like fun.
no, it wasn't. So, and this guy, later on, we did a search warrant. He had 500 plants of marijuana plants, and he had 23 automatic weapons, and he had several that was large calibers. One was 50 caliber with tracer rounds, and he had 73,000 rounds of ammunition.
Wow.
So it was a bad situation.
Speaking of marijuana, that's gonna come up too. We have to
Yeah.
make some decisions on on that coming up next
Yeah.
Thursday too. I was noticing on the news last night, they've got a big problem going off on I forget what state it is, but I don't think it's Colorado. It's one of those states out there where marijuana's in such big use that they've actually got a shortage of it, and they're calling it an emergency because they don't have enough coming in.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I'm on the
So
opioid.
be prepared.
Yeah, I've got to meet tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning at the State House
Oh,
for
okay.
the opioid crisis
Yeah,
team. So We have judges on it, we have doctors, we have,
That's good.
you know, really vast substance abuse counselors. We have a vast array of people on that opioid crisis team, and we've got a sheriff and myself being the DARE coordinator. And,
Yep.
and being in law enforcement for many years, and being an assistant jail administrator and been
Right.
involved in that. So anyway, that crisis team is a serious situation, and marijuana is not going to help. If those things, if you people out there think that marijuana helps this crisis, you're wrong. I don't know of one person that I've dealt with that I went to make an arrest on the opioids that did not use marijuana. They used it and they went to harsher drugs. And it's not going to alleviate the problem.
I know, I mean, I go back to when marijuana became more heavy, which was in the late sixties. Before then, it was, you know, it was around, but it wasn't,
Yeah.
you know, the heaviness as it was then. And there was, and from that, you know, well, it's a step drug, and then the people, oh, no, it's not a step drug. But anyone I've ever seen goes from marijuana to heroin,
It's a gateway drug.
and it's a gateway drug.
And,
I'm
and
sorry.
basically, I can tell you from doing 13 years, a Thumbs Up program, it's a first-time offender program for juveniles.
Yeah, yeah.
And we used to do that, and I headed it. And we would ask the kids that was involved in it, how many drugs that they had used, or what kind of drugs they had used, because it was a counseling part. And out of that, most kids on an average used 5 to up to 15 different drugs just before the age of 18 years of age.
Yeah.
Before 18 years of age. And so marijuana was not just the only one that they used. Alcohol was not the only one they used. There was LSD, there was shrooms, there was heroin, cocaine, bath salts. I can keep going. There's the artificial marijuana called, shoot,
Yeah, I don't
it'll
know.
come to me in a second.
Not that
But
familiar.
anyway, there's all kinds, there's a list of them. So anyway, I just added more W scheduled drugs, which is fentanyls. There's a whole list of different fentanyls. One of them could kill an elephant with no problem.
Right.
You know,
Well,
you
it's
just touch it, it can kill you.
Yeah, actually, there was, I think, an obituary in the paper today about a young man that overdosed.
Yeah.
It was, you know, and the other thing is, you know, you'll get the same thing back with the people that are the marijuana supporters and that, oh, well, alcohol's just as bad. Well, guess what? I hate to say it, but back in the 50s when I was in high school,
Yeah.
we had a tendency to drink a little bit of alcohol. You know,
Yeah.
it was done back then, but there wasn't, never one time I ever saw anybody taking drugs because of alcohol. You know, they might have a beer, but that would be, that's the
Yeah.
extent of it.
Well, I'll tell you, times have certainly changed, but they did lift the age from 18 to 21 on alcohol
Yeah.
because
Oh, yeah.
there was so many accidents and kids just do not develop the maturity, and now they're even saying you're not totally mature until you're almost 25, 26 years old. So, you know, and so they did raise the age, they're trying to raise the age on tobacco even to 21.
It was just raised to 18,
Yeah.
so that bill went through.
Yeah, it was 18, now it's gonna go to 21. Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
situation is that, you know, again, I don't know, again, coming out of when I was in high school, it was 16.
Yeah, and this is just purchasing it at 21.
I was gonna say, it doesn't
It's
make
not-
it illegal to use it.
They can
so
use
what
it
good
at
is it?
18. But the problem with, and I think it's a phase-in situation where we're going to 21 to buying it, and then later on, it'll phase into 21 totally. But the biggest problem we have is that tobacco users at 18, 19, 20 years old that are still in high school are giving it to their friends in high school, and that's what we're trying to stop.
Well, it was done when I was in school, and I grew up
Yeah.
in the Midwest. But in Illinois, when I was in high school, it was 18. It was for guys, it was 21 years old to buy alcohol, but
Yeah.
for girls was 18
Right.
because they were a little bit smarter than we were.
Yeah.
So they could go out and purchase that. Now, there's one of the states that, again, reading a couple of things. It was the state of Wisconsin has, I forget, out of the top 10 has eight cities in Wisconsin in the country have the highest level of alcohol abuse. And Wisconsin was always, again, living, because we were quite a ways away from the border, but not that far away from the border. In Wisconsin, drinking age was 18 when I was in high school, the whole
Yeah.
state.
Right.
So, you kind of look at it and say, well, maybe there was a reason that these cities are the
Yep.
biggest alcohol abuse cities.
There was also, I was gonna look up, there was also something important that on the budget.
Yeah,
There was some really good things that came out of the budget, is that the school budget,
Yeah.
$162 million
Yep.
is going towards school budget this year.
That's correct.
Which is the highest it's ever given to the state for schools. Now, there is also a provision that is really outstanding. They really wanted to keep revenue sharing. Well, this isn't considered revenue sharing, but it's very close. What it does is if the town of Fairfield, for example, or Waterville wants to take 50% of that school budget money that they don't need, they can put that towards lowering their tax mill rate. So that's big.
yeah.
If you can lower it down 2 or 3 points,
It's a
wow,
big time.
you know?
Well,
3
and
mills.
there are some education reforms in there. I mean, as we talked about earlier on other show. Right
Yep.
now, 59% of the money goes towards classrooms.
Right,
And, we're pushing that up to 70% to go towards classrooms.
Yep.
I had checked yesterday, actually, Department of Education hasn't come out with their figures yet of what each school system is actually going to receive. I had hoped to have those figures this morning, but I couldn't get them because they haven't
Yep.
formulated and finished their situation yet. So we don't know what our schools are going to get in relationship to what they were getting in the past.
yep. And for those teachers out there and also any state, I think there's gonna be a pension exemption. That
Yeah.
there's gonna be, you're not gonna be taxed on your pensions.
Right.
So that'd be awesome too.
Yep.
That'd be a
No,
big help on people.
And I think it's, the one thing, again, it's coming down to the fact that the way we are sitting, and I think eventually it's gonna happen, Waterville, Winslow have done a great job on it, where they combined to use one superintendent.
Yep,
My personal self, we've got Oakland, Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, 4 towns. I think could be run one superintendent and 3 assistant superintendents in
yeah,
each one of the school systems. You're not combining the school system, making it all
Right.
one, you're just putting one person over there.
Yep.
And, we can do that throughout the state.
yep. And also there was several good things that came out too, is we got rid of the lodging tax.
Yeah.
They were gonna try to raise it up 1.5%.
Yeah, and that
Which-
was, people look at it and I don't think a lot of people realize that lodging tax also included campgrounds. So if you've got a person, a Mainer, for example, that is renting a lot for a year from a campground for their camper, guess what?
Yeah,
That tax would have been more them than the
Yep.
out-of-stater coming in and staying at our hotels. So,
right.
you know, we did it more for the people than we did for the.
All right, so we the Senate, you know, we was at the last hour and we felt that we had no other alternative, because we didn't have a budget other than the one we had presented to us. And so we had to vote for it, and I didn't want to see a closure. So, but, the House had a little more information than we did, because the governor had let them know.
Yeah.
And so at the last hour, they said that they did have another budget proposal.
Yep.
And then they had to work it, it had to go back to the committee of conference, and then they
Go
came
through
up
that.
with this solution, and then we all voted for it.
It was a
So
lot of fun, 2:00 in the morning, we
Yeah.
watched the governor sign the
It was-
budget.
It was a long day. So, anyway, but it came out good, you know, so that nobody has any major tax increases, and it worked out well. We got rid of some big hurdles out there that
It was-
could have
it was-
affected this state seriously, and the 3% would have been devastating to the
Yes.
state.
Unfortunately,
question.
I think unfortunately, the budget is higher than what we really wanted, because
Yeah.
it has, in the last few years, it has gone up dramatically, but
Right.
it is what it is, and we just gotta keep working on it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, that's for the wrap-up for today's show, and I hope you get a little information, insight of what we've dealt with in the last few weeks, and we're still out there working, and, you know, like I said, I got the opioid crisis committee tomorrow. We've got the veto day, and we
Probably a
got
few other
many
things
other
coming
things
along,
that come
yes.
along, and there's a lot of other things taking place that
course.
people don't see.
And we stopped getting paid on June 1st.
Right, yeah. So anyway, thank you, and hopefully you have a good summer, and we will see you soon.
Yes. Same from here.